Microsoft 365 has been a real game changer and has really changed the landscape as far as the way that office tools are being used and business collaboration and things like that over the last few years. Technologies like Teams has really blown up, and you might be thinking, wait a second, Joe. I thought you were talking about Office 365. Teams and collaboration and Office applications and all that is Office 365. Why are you saying Microsoft 365? Well, all of that was part of a branding change that happened a few years ago. Some people kind of missed out on it because it was Microsoft's. When the marketing people get involved with stuff starts getting a little weird, and you get used to something just as things start to change. So let's take a step back and have a little bit of a history lesson on Office 365 and how that's turned into Microsoft 365. So, of course, everybody in the business world is familiar with Office. Microsoft Office has been a standard suite of tools going on over 20 years now, going all the way back to, I think, Windows 1, maybe even before that. I know in the very early days of Windows, you had Office tools that included things like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Publisher, and different applications that were used, PowerPoint. And through the years, those were all originally sold as different applications. And back in the old days, you'd go into the store and you'd grab a box and it would come with a disk, and you'd bring it home and you'd pop the disk in and you'd actually install the software on your computer. And then things began to change and they started bundling all of these tools together so that you would get Office, Microsoft Office, and Microsoft Office would come in different varieties. There was like business Office, there was home office, and they would basically come with Word, PowerPoint, Excel, maybe a couple other little things depending, like Publisher used to be pretty popular, and that was used for websites and for graphic design and things like that. And there were some other things over the years here and there that they would kind of toss in, change, modify. Once software as a service started to become popular, and the whole software as a service model is the idea that you, instead of just buying a box of software, instead you subscribe to the software. So instead of paying $300 to get the box, you pay $20 a month or $10 a month or $100 a year or something like that. You download the software and then it's constantly updating. So you're always getting a newest version. So instead of getting Microsoft Office version 9 and then a year later getting version 10 and then a year later version 11, you just get Microsoft Office, and it automatically gets upgraded for you as long as your subscription is up to date. Now, that became known as Microsoft 365. And as part of the subscription model, there were a bunch of other tools that were involved with it. Tools, and more specifically, not just tools, but services. So services like OneDrive, which is a storage mechanism, cloud storage mechanism. Tools like SharePoint, which originally SharePoint was a piece of software, was a server-side software that you would install on like a corporate server that would allow people to interact. It was almost kind of like a social media style platform for before, there was anything like Facebook or things like that. It was like a bulletin board. Bulletin board's probably a good way to describe it. So it was like a bulletin board that you could post to. Well, it's very difficult to install and maintain and everything, but there was a version of it for Microsoft 365 that was actually hosted and shared for you, so your whole company could get a hold of it and use it. And then in that way, it was actually pretty useful. That also integrated with a lot of other tools, like, for example, Exchange. Exchange is the email system, the email server system that Microsoft created. And as part of their Office 365, they would include Exchange email, so you didn't have to have an Exchange server on premises. So there were services that were involved, and more, rather than just having software, rather than just having the box that had Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel and others, rather than having just those services, there were other services involved that extended your ability to do things like share files, like communicate with your team, like video conferencing. So, and there were other things that were added on here and there. What the folks at Microsoft felt was that that ended up extending the brand of Office too far. So, Office was kind of thought of as Word, Excel, PowerPoint. So, as all these services were getting added on, then it started to look a little bit less like Office and more like a comprehensive suite of tools. So, they thought that they would rebrand everything as Microsoft 365, and that's exactly what we have today. Microsoft 365 is the same thing as Office 365 from a few years ago, plus all of these different services that are included. So you have Office, which they think of more as just Office, and then you have services like Teams, which includes video conferencing, communication, collaboration. You have OneDrive, which includes file sharing and collaboration. You have SharePoint, which kind of integrates with all of these things so that you have file sharing, collaboration, and different ways of doing those types of things. Plus, you have some of the newer things like video editing tools, video sharing tools. You've got Exchange and Outlook, Outlook Online. You've got, of course, the Outlook suite itself. So there's all of these different tools that are included with Microsoft 365, and they felt like that would give them a broader umbrella to be able to expand those things out. The pricing and pretty much the modeling for everything, the packages that were available stayed primarily the same. Since they've done that branding change, they've extended out all of those little areas. So they've added tools to it, but the overall pricing and everything at first stayed the same. And the thing is, Microsoft continues to add all kinds of new tools, new features, new services, new software, all kinds of things that fall under this Microsoft 365 umbrella. And before long, it's believed that Windows itself will start to fall under this Microsoft 365. So instead of buying Windows for your computer, you'll subscribe to Windows, and you won't get Microsoft Windows 11, Microsoft Windows 12, Microsoft Windows 13. At some point, you'll probably just get Microsoft Windows, and it'll all be part of this continual update system. The bad news is that as they've built this stuff out, it's become far more complicated, and there's all kinds of options that you can choose from. So just looking at the Microsoft website here, let me read you off some of the packages that are available for Microsoft 365. You have Microsoft 365 Business Basic, Microsoft 365 Apps for Business, Microsoft 365 Standard, Microsoft 365 Premium. You've got Microsoft 365 Family, Microsoft 365 Personal. You've got all of these different options. You've got Microsoft 365 E3, Microsoft 365 E5, Microsoft 365 F3. So there's all of these different plans. They can all be paid monthly. They can be paid annually. They have these different tools that are available. So which one do you need? Do you need family or do you need personal? Well, if it's for your business, does it need to be the E3? What about the E5? What's included in the E5? What makes it different? And what's difficult to answer about all of that is it really just depends on what you need. You need to work with, if you're working from home and if this is for yourself and it's not for your business, then basically what you're looking at is personal if you don't intend anybody else in your family to be using it. But if you do want to have other people in your family using it, go ahead and get family because that'll provide it for up to 6 additional people. So that's pretty nice. That can be really handy, especially if you've got a spouse, young kids that might be getting up in high school, maybe into college, might need to use some of this stuff. Although once they get into college, they'll probably want to get their own license and start having their own storage and all that kind of stuff. But if you're getting into business, you really need to work with someone that you can collaborate with that can tell you what you need. Is it a small business? Do you have an enterprise? That's what the E licenses are for, the E5, E3s. Those are all enterprise licenses. Which one do you need? Do they have different? They all have so many different tools and so many different things that are available. What makes them different? Which ones do you need? Do you need the security management, for example? Do you need compliance management? What kind of compliance do you need? Well, all of those kinds of things can only be answered by somebody that actually knows what they're doing, has a little bit of knowledge and history of the background and the tools that are available in Microsoft 365. So you'll want to work with an IT company like Advantage Technology, for example. Reach out to us and we will be happy to walk you through all the steps, get a little bit of information from you so that we can set you up in a consultative process to figure out exactly what you need and help you solve those problems and figure out what version of Microsoft 365 you need.